Have you at any time reprimanded, punished, demoted, or taken any action against any priest for or official for their mishandling of childhood sexual abuse while Archbishop?
Could you repeat the question again? You had several verbs there.
Have you at any time reprimanded, punished, demoted, or taken any disciplinary action against any priest or official of the Archdiocese for their mishandling of child sexual abuse allegations?
I don't believe so, no.
Do you believe you should have?
No.
Do you believe there are any priests in the Archdiocese or officials in the Archdiocese that have mishandled childhood sexual abuse?
At what point in time?
Allegations since your installation?
No, I don't believe so.
Father Michael Stevens, what do you know about him?
I don't.
Are you aware that in the mid-1980s he pled guilty to criminal sexual conduct with a minor?
I'm not to know.
Are you aware that in 2002 he was publicly he was removed from ministry?
I'm not aware of that.
At any time, are you aware that the parishioners or the public were ever informed that Father Michael Stevens posed a risk of harm to the children in the Archdiocese?
That was all before my time.
Are you aware that Father Michael Stevens is on monitoring?
Excuse me?
Are you aware that Father Michael Stevens is on monitoring now?
In the POMS program, yes.
Yeah. And the only ones that know that are now us and those in your inner circle, correct?
Object to the form. I don't know inner circle.
Well, the inner circle would be the chancellors, the auxiliary bishops, and the vicar generals, and your officials. And the monitors.
I don't know that as fact.
Are you aware that Father Michael Stevens, while on monitoring, still performs IT work for the Archdiocese and for various parishes?
My understanding is that he had in the past, but no longer does, perform that service.
And he is still a priest, correct?
I believe that's correct.
And when then did he stop doing the IT work in parishes and for the Archdiocese while a priest?
It was some time ago, but I can't tell you the exact date.
What prompted the revocation or termination of his IT work?
I don't have that answer.
Who does?
I would presume Father McDonough would know. I think that that happened under his watch.
His watch as promoter, but your watch as Archbishop, correct?
I don't have those dates.
Does it concern you to hear and learn that you had and have a priest by the name of Michael Stevens, who was on the monitoring plan? And by the way, that monitoring plan, did you inherit that from your predecessor, or did you start that?
I inherited it from my predecessor.
Does it concern you that you have Michael Stevens on such a monitoring plan and that he is still a priest and allowed to go into parishes and do IT work, knowing that he had been accused and not under monitoring?
That would be a cause for concern.
Isn't it a conscious choice being made by Father McDonough to take the risk to let that guy out there as a priest even work in the parishes?
Objection. That's argumentative and misstates facts and evidence.
I would have to talk to Father McDonough about that.
Do you think it deserves some attention?
I would be willing to talk to Father McDonough about that.
Thank you. Now, there is some indication that Deacon Rourke is the monitor of Stevens. Are you aware of that?
Deacon O'Rourke was the Palms person. That's the name I couldn't remember before.
Okay.
But Mr. John Selvig is now the monitor.
Is it O'Rourke or Rourke? I've seen it both ways.
Yeah, I can't tell you.
Okay. I've got it as Rourke.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Are you aware, Archbishop, that Father McDonough communicated to the monitor, Rourke, concerning Stevens, that Stevens was in 4 to 5 parishes, and the pastors in those doing IT work, and a priest, the pastors had not been informed of the fact that Stevens had been accused of sexual molestation.
On what date are you referring to?
I'm just asking if you're aware of that.
I was not aware of that.
Are you aware that Jennifer Hasselberger, your former Chancellor for Canonical Affairs, raised concerns with Father Laird in 2011 about Stephen's status as a priest in the parishes doing this IT work, and that he had had a criminal conviction?
I was not aware of that.
Is it your testimony that Father Laird never discussed that topic with you?
To the best of my recollection, he did not.
Is it your testimony that Jennifer Hasselberger never brought to your attention concerns that Stevens would not be working in the parishes, being able to do IT work if he had been a layperson because he wouldn't gotten by a record check?
I am not aware that Jennifer ever brought that to my attention.
Did you remove Father Laird as a vicar general?
I did not.
Did he resign?
He did.
Why?
To the best of my recollection, he had disagreed with me at the time that I had made Father Waymeyer pastor of Blessed Sacrament and St. Thomas the Apostle parishes. And he felt that when the NPR story came out on the 28th of September, that that reflected poorly on himself, and he felt that he had to resign because of it.
Did you ask him to resign?
I did not.
Do you hold him responsible for the failures that led to his resignation, or do you hold yourself?
I don't know.
Objection, it assumes facts, not an evidence. What failures? No one's discussed failures.
I don't know what failures you'd be talking about.
Well, you referred to the NPR story. What was the NPR story that caused the ultimate resignation?
Well, the objection, that's not what he stated either, counsel. Try to ask questions that are questions.
Just a minute.
And not put.
Don't instruct me. Give me a legal
I'm
objection.
instructing you, counsel, because you've continued to misstate evidence and try to create your own evidence by putting facts into a question that don't exist. That's
Just a minute.
inaccurate
Stop.
statement.
I'll rephrase. Did the NPR story trigger Laird's resignation?
I believe it did.
Okay. What was it that caused, in the NPR story, that triggered it?
Well, we didn't talk about that specifically, so you'd have to talk to him about that. But my recollection is that he used the expression, "I'm being painted with the same brush you are." And he said, "I need to resign to maintain my integrity."
I'm sorry, I wasn't able, there was pounding. I didn't hear what you said he said. Could you repeat that?
He used the expression, he said, the media is painting us with the same brush, and for my own integrity, I need to resign. I believe that's what he said.
Did you feel bad for Laird and consider him to have been a victim?
I don't know that I considered him a victim, but I felt badly that he felt he had to resign, yes.
There was an audio recording made of a meeting you had with priests and reported by NPR where I think, to paraphrase, you described Father Laird as having been a victim in this whole thing. Did you use those terms to your fellow priests in the meeting?
I don't recall. I remember the event, and I spoke positively about Father Laird and the contributions he had made to the Archdiocese. I don't remember the exact words I used.
Did you listen to the NPR recording of your own words about Father Laird?
I did not.
Did you hear about that?
I heard that that was surreptitiously and secretly that recording was made, but I didn't listen to it.
Did you discipline anybody or investigate anybody for having made such a recording?
I did not.
Do you know who did?
No, I don't.
Do you care?
Who did what? Who did
the
the
recording?
There were only probably 10 people in the room. But if I were to guess, it would just be a guess as to who it was.
Okay, don't need you to guess. Archbishop, I'd like to ask you about Father Gilbert Gusterson. His current status in the Archdiocese is what?
I believe that He is retired. He's in our monitoring program, and he's living on his own.
You're aware that he had been convicted of criminal sexual conduct?
I was, yes.
When did you first become aware of that?
I think during the last 6 months.
Were you aware that he had been, at some point in time, either prior to or after your installation, working at the Archdiocese offices in the tribunal?
I was not aware of that, no.
Were you aware that a protest had been done prior to your installation at the Chancery about Gusterson's presence as a priest at the Archdiocese?
I was not aware of that.
Are you aware that Father Gusterson has worked as a consultant at Cristo Rey Jesuit High School?
I learned about that just recently. I wasn't aware of it at the time.
And when did you learn that?
I believe I learned that in the as a result of the Conseil file review.
Were you aware that Father Gusterson, after a lawsuit was brought against him by Ann Bunzy, who became quite public about it, was placed on disability and is now receiving disability payments?
I'm not aware of that.
Are you aware that there is an insurance company in the Archdiocese that insures the Archdiocese and priests in it?
Yes, I'm
that
aware of that.
qualifies somebody such as Gil Gusterson for disability?
I am aware that there is such a program.
What's the name of that company?
I can't recall at the moment.
Is that administered effectively by your office?
It would
At
be
least under the control?
it would be done through our finance office.
And are you aware that Gil Gusterson, as we speak here today, is receiving disability payments every month for the diagnosis of pedophilia?
I was not aware of that. No.
Do you know what pedophilia is?
I do.
Do you think that's appropriate, Archbishop, for him to be getting disability payments for having the diagnosis and having been established as being a compulsive sexual offender that qualifies him for that diagnosis?
I'm not aware of those
That's
facts.
a legal conclusion. There's no foundation here, but also a legal conclusion, and I don't think that the Archbishop is qualified to evaluate who qualifies under insurance policies for disability counsel.
I'm not aware of those facts.
Okay. When you say you know what pedophilia is, let's make sure we're talking about the same thing.
Okay.
Under the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual used by mental health practitioners and for purposes of establishing disability and the like and other reasons, pedophilia is defined as a compulsive sexual interest in prepubescent adolescence. Now, keeping that diagnosis in mind, and now being informed that he is getting, through this program, disability payments for that diagnosis, does that concern you?
Same objections, and Archbishop, I don't know if you know how to answer how he qualifies under an insurance policy contract, you can answer. If you don't, you can advise that you don't understand or know.
I don't understand, and I have not had those facts. I'd have to look into the facts to see where the truth lies.
Well, does it concern you, having heard what you just did, that he was working at Cristo Rey and allowed to?
That would have been a concern, yes.
Why haven't you gone back to the files pertaining to Gil Gusterson and others like him, Stevens and Levan and those that we've discussed at least so far, and made sure that you're abiding by the promise of zero tolerance and the safety of the children in this archdiocese?
There's no evidence, counsel. You have implied that that there's been some violation of zero tolerance, and there's no evidence of that. So your statements, again, if they're...
Do you have an objection? State a legal objection.
I do, counsel.
Don't give me a speech.
No, here's my concern, counsel. You are trying to make sound bites for yourself and for media by inserting facts that do not exist. And so when you say that and imply that there's some violation when there is not, that is unfair and it's inappropriate. So if you want to ask the Archbishop questions about which he knows and can answer, he'll do his best. But don't imply and don't create your facts for a media soundbite.
Why do you think you don't know that one of your priests, Gil Gusterson, is getting payments for a diagnosis of pedophilia while he works at Cristo Rey?
Well, I would have to look into the facts. You're telling me facts that may or may not be true, and I would have to look into that. We just had this Kinsale group, as I mentioned, go through 800 files, and they're still in the process of doing that. I suspect that their findings are going to be enlightening for us, and we will follow up on whatever they have come up with.
Do you consider it a violation of the promises you've made to the people and the zero tolerance policy to have allowed Levan to have worked in parish?
I didn't know he was working in parishes. He was retired, and so he shouldn't have been working in the parish.
You learned he was, though, didn't you?
Just recently I've learned.
So it was a violation, wasn't it?
We took him out of ministry as soon as we learned.
You say we learned. How?
I learned, I'm sorry.
That means other people learned. He couldn't have been in there without other people having known, right? Under people under your control?
I don't know that as a fact.
You want to take a break?
We can take a break.
Is it a good time to take a break?
Sure, if you like.
Okay.
Thanks.
We're going off the record at 10:31 a.m.